What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We're talking dynasty trades. Every week, we kind of go through just some value trades out there for particular players that may be interested. You might be wanting to buy, you might want to be selling, and just guys in your leagues that you could be kind of going after right now. If you're a contender, now's the time to start looking at your roster and say, hey, okay, how can I fill gaps? Or maybe you have a couple guys like, hey, maybe Mark Andrews. What the hell are we doing with Mark Andrews? We're going to talk about that today on this. And I think Mark Andrews is the big one. Is like, hey, this guy just completely fell off. What are we doing here? What is their values? We go through real dynasty trades, looking at the market value. And we're going to be doing 25 first. We're going to be looking at kind of players that they're going for right now based on some dynasty trades out there. So let's start. We're going to be positive. We're going to start positively today. That's going to be our motto today. And we're going to talk Malik Nabers. So let's get into it right now. He's wide receiver 2 on Keep Trade Cut. Look at that value hike since the season started. He's jumped up. He had 12 catches, 115 yards this last week against the Cowboys. He looked really good. I mean, we're talking about Malik Nabers. You're really just talking about the targets that he's earned this year, right? On a Giants team that's just not very good. He has 52 targets through 4 weeks. He's one of the top target getters out there. Receptions, he has 35. And I mean, he's already sitting there, and you're looking at just his numbers and where he's finished. He was wide receiver 6 last week. You saw against Cleveland, just, he was very good there in terms of PPR. He was a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 in Washington, kind of reminiscent of Puka Nacua last year as a rookie, kind of like, hey, this guy just keeps earning targets, right? He had 18 against Washington, 12 and 15. He's their guy. I mean, anybody that makes Daniel Jones look good, that's essentially what you get, right? He's a stud out there. Now, I think the interesting part is, what do you value him at, right? So 21 years old. I had some fun with some guys on social media, and I said, would you trade Malik straight up for Justin Jefferson? I mean, people have Malik. They keep saying Malik's their wide receiver 1, but could you really make that deal straight up if that's what you think the value's at? And, you get the trolls, you get those people out there. And I don't think I could, but that's where he's getting value. Now, when you're looking at deals out there, I think this is where it gets kind of interesting. So, a lot of package deals. You have Monty, Pickens, Walker. Give me Malik all day in that one, right? I like taking the best valuable player. Even though I like George Pickens, I like those guys. Give me the best value. That's where it's at. But there's some deals on here that I still think, like Malik for Bijan in a second, right? That is an ultimate, like, do you feel like trying to go out there and get that top 5 running back and a second round pick if you need it, or do you stick with Malik? Now, I know that the in vogue thing to do is just take the wide receiver, right? But I do like to give you guys the idea of what the value looks like, especially at that running back position there. A lot of first, some Malik, Drake, and 2 first. Drake London for Malik Nabers. Again, Drake London's kind of disappointed this. Well, shoot, I could say his whole career in terms of what his perceived value could be, his projected value. Malik's right there, but that's what his lofty price is, right? Like some of these deals, I would not sell them. Like Malik for Deontay Fields a second, ridiculous. I don't know who did that in the league. Olave, Kyron Williams. Olave is a dream that just has not been foreseen. Like we don't know what Olave is because in reality, he just hasn't played well, right? Rashid Shaheed is playing better than him out there for the Saints right now. So when you look at the deals overall, I still think he's valuable. I think that at some of these prices, he's still a buy. Like if I can get him for some of these deals, if I can throw in Pickens, Monty, and a Kenneth Walker for Malik, 100%, especially if I'm not contending. Just go grab Malik anyway, and you can kind of have him, and that's your centerpiece. I would say for rebuilding teams, if there's a way to go get Malik, probably, I mean, with the way he's producing, that's probably not going to happen. If there's a possibility there for a contending team, you might have to get too much up in the package, but I'm not worried about giving up a couple first, right? If you can give up a couple first and add somebody else, like some of these deals, like Drake London or something like that to a rebuilding team, do that in a heartbeat. Like if I have to give up 2 first and Olave, I would do that. I'd do that for Malik 100%. All right, let's get into some deeper cuts here. Let's talk about Tank Bigsby. I think Tank Bigsby is a buy right now. He's looked pretty good when you're looking at, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've struggled. Like, they really have struggled with Travis Etienne being there. He's got a shoulder injury as well. And Bigsby just looked better. 7 attempts, 90 yards. You have to have that. He had a big 58-yard romp there, and he kind of went out, but he fell down, right? Like, that's the thing with Bigsby. It's hard for him to, get that big touchdown there. But we're starting to see a timeshare. Him and Etienne are definitely have that timeshare there. And I think that when you're looking at it, Bigsby is one of the pieces in this offense has looked pretty good. I think that they're going to be looking for a coaching staff change too. I think moving forward, I don't think they're paying ETN. I'd be hard pressed to see them pay an ETN unless they bring him back on a team friendly deal. But I've already seen deals out there where they're talking about ETN kind of resetting the market at running back for whatever reason that is. And that's probably not going to be with Jacksonville, especially if they kind of fire their head coach, whatever that looks like. So moving forward, I kind of like Bigsby as kind of that cheaper buy. Could produce a little bit this year, right? You see that production there, you have it. But then next year, he could be that guy that you're like, hey, this guy's going to be their running back one. And I think there's some value to that. I think that, and especially looking at the deals, right? So when you're going over kind of where his price is, you saw the dip on the keep trade cut market anyway, a fifth and a second, right? A second in Bigsby for Sam Darnold. So that's obviously contending, not contending team. I still want the first back. Like if I'm moving Sam Darnold, I'm still seeing if I can get a first out there somewhere, especially with how he started the season, right? Antonio Gibson a fourth. Give me Bigsby in a third all day. Like I will take the value there, the youth, and the better pick. Like if I can pack something like that, a second is tough. If it's a late second, I don't hate it, but I don't love giving up that value. If I can package a third plus something for Bigsby, I would probably do that. You're going to see a lot of packages here. So Aiyuk and Bigsby for Josh Jacobs and Dallas Goedert. Don't hate it. I like buying low on Aiyuk. We're going to talk about Aiyuk next. There's some deals there where you can do it. But I think Bigsby is in line. I think that he has the value. He has the path. I'm okay buying a little bit low on him. Now, elephant. We're going to talk about two disappointing players next. That's how we're finishing this with the player side. Aiyuk just hasn't been great, right? And this last week that we saw him, he had 2 of 5 targets he caught for 48 yards. It's been lackluster. Not great, right? But he's had a tough matchups. He had New England. He had Christian Gonzalez. He had those guys there. But when you pay a guy money that you paid and you see the value that's dipped on his keep trade cut value there, right? He was Dynasty wide receiver 11. Now he's at wide receiver 22. He's lost half his value. Christian McCaffrey has not been there. It hasn't been great seeing Jahan Jennings being better than him, right? With this offense. The problem is the talent is there, right? And I think that when you're looking at the future and his production, he's a great buy low on a team that maybe just isn't competing or just isn't panning out. He's got Arizona. That's not a bad matchup. I don't think Seattle's a bad matchup. Kansas City, Dallas for sure is damn not a bad matchup after what we've seen Nabers and these things do there. With Debo kind of banged up, CMC, what's that look like? I think Aiyuk's going to right himself here. I know that he has not been good, right? Wide receiver 61 last week. Wide receiver 40 is the best he's done. But there's been targets there. He had 5, 5, 10, and 5 targets. So it's not like he's not getting targeted. The efficiency's out there. That production's not there. That can bounce back. So for me, Aiyuk's a low, a kind of a buy low with a caveat. Like, what does that mean? Right. If he's still going for a first, is that really a buy low? So Singletary, you added Singletary to a first. All right. I'll take that side there. If it's a late first there, Trey Tucker in a first, right? If you have to give up a first, I'm still willing to give that up for Brandon Aiyuk. If, you're looking at, he got paid, he got the money, he's going to be their wide receiver 1 back in. Now he's getting some kind of thrown in some deals here. You'll see, Brandon Aiyuk and Brian Robinson for Devontae Adams and DeAndre Swift. You see some other deals here, Brandon and JSN straight up. I still think that's interesting. I still like JSN. I love the targets. I love the offense. I think Lockett's gone after this year. But if you're looking at it like I want to contend, I want a piece right now that I know is going to earn targets and get production. Brandon Aiyuk is that guy. So I think that's fair value there for him. I still think he's a buy low right now in the format. I would definitely go out there and target him, see what I can do and see what offers I can get out there for him. All right, let's talk about this guy, Mark Andrews. I've had a ton of questions, DMs, talk what the hell we doing with Mark Andrews. And really, the way I look at it, Mark Andrews in his dynasty purgatory. And how I mentioned purgatory is if you own Mark Andrews, there's probably not a deal worth giving up for low, right? You're like, hey, I'm sitting on this. He's going to bounce back. He's going to bounce back. And then if you are out there, like, are you willing to buy that he could bounce back? This offense has not looked great, right? When you're thinking about this offense and what, like, Justice Hill is out there. Aguilar is out there getting targets. And Andrews is only around 41% of dropbacks. That's how many routes he's ran. 41% of the time they drop back, he actually runs a route. That's less than half. He's essentially a blocking tight end right now, which from a NFL standpoint and a team standpoint is what he does well. He's doing that pretty well there, but his usage is rock bottom when you're looking at game scripts, right? Bad game scripts, bad usage, just hasn't seen it there. So are you willing to buy that, right? He's jumped from tight end 5, 4 to 16 in 4 weeks. That's probably the biggest drop I've seen from a player, right? Outside like a quarterback just playing like ass, Bryce Young, those things. Mark Andrews definitely has dropped the lowest. Now, when you're looking at deals, though, Some are intriguing, right? So like some are, when you look in here, Andrews in a first for Stephon Diggs and Kyle Pitts. I mean, what are we doing with Kyle Pitts at this point, right? Mark Andrews for Jameson Williams. I think if I could get Jameson Williams at this point, when we've seen the production, we've seen it, I would do that deal, right? So if I have Mark, I'm willing. That's a fine line. That's where I would be. You want Jameson Williams? Yeah, I'll take him here. That's what I'll do. Mark Andrews in third for a second. I kind of like the Mark Andrews side. I'll roll the dice that Mark Andrews can get me back a second or better if he bounces back, and then I get a third round pick. That is a deal that I'm willing to make. Andrews for Michael Mayer. I would take Andrews. Michael Mayer ain't going to see the field, Not with Brock Bowers being there, not in that offense. I don't love that either. So if I can flip both those guys, I'm okay taking the risk there. Mark Andrews, Nick Chubb. And then what is Nick Chubb moving forward? The injury, whatever's going there. I still like Mark Andrews there. Now, where I think you draw the line is a second, right? If I have Mark Andrews, am I willing to give up him for a second? No, because at some point in my mind, I want to get a first back for him. That's where I'm willing to kind of go there. Now, on the flip it, are you willing to give up a second for Mark Andrews? I'm willing to give up a third. Second is tough. Like, second is like, I truly still think he's going to bounce back. The tight end position is gross, right? But he's in purgatory right now. It's hard to kind of buy or sell him. That's where my line is at. If I have Mark, I can get a guy like Jameson Williams, or I can pair him and I can get somebody else, right? Like a Mark Andrews in a first for Brock. I'll do that. I'll take Mark Andrews in the first if it's tight end premium and go get him there. That's 0.5 tight end premium, so I'm okay with that. Mark Andrews, Noah Fant in a second. I don't want to give up that second. Change that to a third. I'm willing to kind of roll the dice there and kind of go after it, right? I traded a Noah Fant actually and a third. That's why I said it. Mark Andrews in the league, and I'm rolling with it. I'm hoping Mark Andrews bounces back. So that's the skin I have in the game there. As far as like where he's at, it's tough. It's a tough buy or sell. It's really just depending on, you don't want to be left there. But if I can get a guy like Jameson Williams, if I can get those type of guys, Deontay Johnson, someone that can produce this year on a contending team, I'm willing to part ways with Mark Andrews and let that be someone else's problem. Now, we're talking about first. Let's go over real quick just kind of what that looks like. Right now, 2025 early first. And again, straight up is hard. So I try to dictate value based on this, just all across the board. I looked at real dynasty trades. Some of them are straight up. And then I looked at kind of like keep trade cut, what the value is there. I kind of averaged them out. So AJ Brown, Saquon, Brock, Devon Chain, Puka Nacua, Olave kind of going for early first. At this point with Olave, if I can get an early first for him and flip that to Luther or Tet McMillan or one of those guys, I'd probably do that. I've never been a big Olave guy in Dynasty. His value was definitely always overinflated, and I think we're starting to see that a little bit. As far as mid-first, what you're seeing, Jalen Waddle out there, that offense is a mess. CMC is probably the lowest we've seen his price, but if you could get a mid-first back for him, I mean, the Achilles tendonitis is a worry, right? Like, what the hell is going on there? I didn't even know what Achilles tendonitis was. And then someone mentioned it's because people exercise. Like, oh, that's why I don't know what it is. Brandon Aiyuk going for a mid-first too. George Pickens, mid-first. Drake May, the wait-and-see plan with Drake May right now. Zay Flowers. So those guys are all kind of going for those mid-first. And then we look at late first. Travis Etienne, Kamara, Tank, Ladd, Godwin. Trevor Lawrence is kind of going for that late first. I see some people out there saying they're buying the dip on Lawrence. I caution that. I think that offense is really bad. We need to see kind of what this team looks like moving forward. What are you buying? What does that look like there? And then Brian Robinson. Shout out Brian Robinson. He was one of my top sleeper running back one candidates for like late round zero running back builds. He's kind of panning out. I mean, he looked pretty good. He's looked solid. You can plug and play him. He's fine on that roster there, but he's going for a late first. So if you have him out there and you want to flip Brian Robinson, you're in mid to late. I'm not really a contender. I'm going to go get a first for Brian Robinson. I think you do that in a heartbeat. I wouldn't buy Brian Robinson for a first. I'm not comfortable with that. But if you can sell him for that, absolutely, that's how you go. So those are our dynasty trades this week, kind of going through risers and fallers, looking at guys that like, hey, who should we be buying and selling? But also like the pick values there. Me and Jay just dropped a 2025 mock. Go check that out the first round. We're going to be doing a big 3-round mock here in about a month, kind of looking at some guys out there you can target. But if I can get in that tier range right now, I'd say 101 to 105 is definitely where you want to try to get. Go target some of those picks. Maybe look at points for. Another thing, see what teams are overachieving, but their points for and points against are just not adding up. And you're like, that team's going to have a precipitous fall. Or maybe it's a very top-heavy team where an injury can just take them out. Go try to target their first right now. Go look at their first and say, hey, I'll give you this piece over here, this dynasty piece. This asset is going to put you over the top. But you know that back end, their points for doesn't look great, but against points against, their team is top heavy, could have an injury away from just tanking. Go look and try to get those first so that you can kind of position yourselves now. That's a great strategy to kind of go utilize out there. So appreciate you guys. I'll check you guys in the next one.